Hello everyone, this is CJ with Cycletron. Today we're diving into answering an excellent question posed by a viewer. Is a leader bike a good choice for your first motorcycle? Motorcycles have certainly evolved massively over the years, delivering better performance and functionality than ever before. The options are virtually endless, but when it comes to choosing your first ride, there are several factors to consider, including experience level, cost, and of course safety. Now let's clarify. When I say a leader bike, I'm referring to a bike with an inline four-cylinder engine with a displacement of around 1,000 cc's. They're powerful machines, no doubt, but is starting with such a potent ride a wise choice from a safety standpoint? Now there's a wide variety of bikes available in this category, some of which I placed on the thumbnail for this video. I'll show you a picture of each of these bikes, and I'll also show the horsepower and torque figures for these bikes in stock form as reported by the manufacturers. Let's look at some popular leader bike options on the market. Honda CB1000RR. This is an Apex motorcycle producing 183 horsepower. Suzuki GSX R1000. This one churns out a whopping 199 horsepower. Kawasaki Ninja 1000 SX. It packs a punch but isn't as extreme as the previous two. Yamaha MT10 producing 138 horsepower. It's on par with the Ninja 1000. Although these motorcycles are exciting and impressive, I have to caution against picking a leader bike as your first motorcycle. While I can understand why someone would want to buy the best performing bike that they could afford, I really don't recommend a full leader bike as a first bike. But you can come close to that level of performance, and I'll explain what types of bikes I would recommend for someone who's looking for the most performance they can get that would still be manageable in terms of rider safety. Personally, my journey as a rider took me from a 535cc V-twin Yamaha Virago to a 920cc V-twin Yamaha Virago, and finally to a 750cc inline four-cylinder Honda Nighthawk. My three sons, all motorcycle riders, also followed a similar progression, starting with smaller bikes and gradually working their way up to larger, more powerful motorcycles. This approach was beneficial for us, and it's one I generally recommend. Now on to the recommendations. For a beginner seeking solid performance in a manageable package, bikes with power ranging from 110 horsepower to 125 horsepower and torque from say 50 to 70 foot-pounds can be a great choice. These typically fall in the 765cc to 950cc range with either a triple or twin-cylinder configuration, but can also include some inline four-cylinder options. Some options that fit the bill include the Triumph Street Triple RS, the Yamaha MT-09, the Kawasaki Z900 RS, and the Ducati Monster. We could also include the Suzuki GSX R750 or the GSX S750 for inline four options to be considered. The Z900 RS has a rated horsepower just below my suggested range of 50 to 70 foot-pounds at 48.5 foot-pounds of torque, and I think this is one of the best overall motorcycles on the market today. Sticking with the inline fours, the 2023 GSX S750 produces 112 horsepower and 60 foot-pounds of torque, and the GSX XR 750 produces a bit more power at 121 horsepower and 53 foot-pounds of torque. Just be careful shopping for a GSX R750 because just a few years ago these bikes produced 148 horsepower and 64 foot-pounds of torque, which is more power than the 125 horsepower cutoff that I'm recommending. However, the other three bikes, which are twins or triples, will give you just a little bit more performance if that's what you're prioritizing in a bike, and typically retail around the $12,000 mark. And that's new. Just a note that Ducati has discontinued the 821 Monster and now sells the Monster SP, which has a 937cc V-twin engine, which now produces just slightly more horsepower and torque than the discontinued 821 Monster. However, let's address the elephant in the room. Any motorcycle, including these recommended bikes, can lead to trouble if not handled responsibly. Temperament, maturity, and most importantly, good judgment play crucial roles in ensuring safety on the road. Also, and this may be a bit controversial, but I would suggest that if you do pick one of these bikes as your beginning bike, I would recommend that you be at least a minimum of 25 years old. Now, I'm not trying to be ageist, so I will explain my reasoning. Looking at a compilation of motorcycle crash statistics at this website, carinsurance.net, we see that a significant number of motorcycle crashes involve young males, particularly in the 25 to 29-year-old age bracket. Many accidents occur on sport bikes, and excessive speed often plays a part. We also know that a lot of these riders are self-taught, which could be a factor in these crashes. Another thing we see is that 14% of all traffic-related deaths are from motorcycle crashes. Keep in mind that motorcycles account for only about 3% of the vehicles on the road in the United States. Also, 42% of motorcycle fatalities had alcohol impairment, and less than 10% of motorcyclists involved in crashes had insurance. Now let's look into some of the key factors that are tied to these numbers. Continuing on the website, it's pointed out that a motorcyclist typically has less than 2 seconds to complete all collision avoidance actions in an accident. These statistics highlight two essential elements of safe riding: experience and judgment. The experience side relates to not only the muscle memory and coordination for operating brakes, clutch, and gas, but also internalizing traffic patterns and common traffic hazards and developing good accident avoidance techniques. The judgment side includes understanding your own limitations and avoiding risks like riding without protective gear or being under the influence of drugs or alcohol. So why are young males more susceptible to accidents? Two primary reasons: greater risk-taking tendencies and the slower development of the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that regulates thoughts, actions, and emotions through extensive connections with other brain regions. It fully matures in women by their early 20s and in men around the age of 25. I'll put up a more expansive description here, but again, this is part of the brain that connects our experience, judgment, and emotions. The judgment side is probably the most important aspect of riding a motorcycle and touches on so many areas of riding. I was shocked to see that so many motorcyclists involved in crashes don't have insurance. To me, that's just an example of poor judgment. Also, many crashes involve riders who are impaired from drugs or alcohol, which is another clear area of bad judgment. Also, we see that many riders don't have adequate protective gear, especially those who don't wear helmets. In my experience, the risks associated with bad judgment and motorcycle riding come from riding faster than you should, passing other vehicles in places where you should not be passing, and doing other things that may exceed your level of motorcycle riding skill and experience. All of these things can happen quicker and to a greater degree on a high-performance sports bike. And I must say, these risks can occur no matter what age you are. It's just that the risks are much greater for younger people and younger males in particular, as borne out by the crash statistics. I should also add that there are some advantages that younger riders have in terms of better eyesight and faster reaction times compared to older riders. But these advantages appear to be more than offset by the inherent disadvantages that these younger motorcycle riders have. Therefore, your first bike selections should involve a serious evaluation of your personality traits and riding skills. But remember, no matter how safe the bike, no matter how responsible the rider, accidents can still happen. As a parent, I took an active role in making these assessments of my sons before even considering placing them on a street bike. My oldest son started out on a 250cc V-twin Virago. He got pretty bored with that bike after riding just 1,000 miles in a few months. Then he progressed to a Kawasaki 650 Vulcan S Cafe, which he promptly totaled, and because he was wearing full gear, only ended up with a few minor scrapes. After totaling the Vulcan, he bought an even sportier bike by getting a Ducati 821 Monster. That bike was a blast, and I'm glad that he did not start out on that bike until he had all the prior experience riding the other motorcycles over a period of a few years. My next oldest son is 18 years old and has had experience riding progressively larger dirt bikes from 50cc to 110cc to 125cc bike. He had about 4 years of dirt riding experience before starting out on a 1982 Yamaha Virago 750 that we had restored to running order. That bike taught him to be very careful while riding, particularly as the bike had no ABS and the brakes and suspension were far below the performance you would get with a modern motorcycle. He then progressed to a Kawasaki Vulcan 650 S Cafe and rode that for a few years before moving up to his current bike, which is a BMW F900. He currently has a BMW S1000 on his wish list. As for my youngest son, who is now 16 years old, he currently rides a Triumph Street Triple RS. He also started out riding dirt bikes for a few years before getting a Kawasaki Z125 Pro and then later a Yamaha MT-03. One thing I learned from my youngest son starting bikes is that while it's great to start out on small, low-powered motorcycles in terms of developing the mechanics of riding, such bikes can be a real disadvantage in traffic in terms of being able to accelerate and maneuver away from a dangerous traffic situation. With all three of my boys, I had them take the MSF course. I took the class with a few of my boys to pick up a few points myself and to better assess the level of riding skill that my boys had at the time. That being said, starting your motorcycle journey with a less powerful bike and gradually upgrading as your skills improve can make the journey safer and more enjoyable. A motorcycle is more than just a machine, it's a lifestyle for many people. The journey towards becoming an expert rider should be savored and not rushed. So the key takeaways from this video are: 1. Know yourself in terms of skill and temperament. Can you resist the temptation to ride in a reckless or dangerous fashion? Take an MSF class and also get plenty of parking lot practice before attempting to ride on the roadway. This will ensure that you will have the necessary mechanical skills for the basic operation of the motorcycle. Make sure you wear full protective gear including helmet, gloves, riding boots, motorcycle jacket, and padded back and elbow areas, and riding pants. Such gear could cost you $1,000 or more, so make sure you budget enough to cover these costs when you buy your bike. When you're a beginning rider, avoid riding with groups, as you may be tempted to ride at a higher skill level than you possess to keep up with the others in the group. It can also be helpful to ride with an older, experienced rider running behind you so that they can give you some feedback about your riding in traffic. The bottom line is that selecting your first bike should involve a serious self-evaluation about your strengths and weaknesses in terms of physical capabilities and emotional maturity. I know a service manager at a metric dealership near me who can no longer afford to ride sport bikes because of the prohibitive cost for him of insurance. It turns out that he got popped doing 144 miles per hour on the highway, which got him a suspended license and a few nights in jail. The thing that struck me was he said that even if he could now afford the insurance on a sport bike, he wouldn't get one because he knows that he cannot resist the temptation to ride at excessive speeds. To me, this shows a good level of maturity that was learned the hard way, at least from a financial standpoint. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you could hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more motorcycle-focused content. Now it's your turn. What was your first bike, and what would you recommend for new riders, especially ones who want to get more sport-oriented motorcycles? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. As always, ride safe, and I'll see you in the next video.